Hello, guys. I'm back, and I'd like to say that with the 24-hour kind of examinations, I feel that it might be very difficult for some, and for some would be very easy for them. So I thought of preparing this particular webinar, which is entitled Am I Ready for the 24-Hour Examination? So we will be talking about paraphrasing, summarizing, and using the sources. And I would like to thank all the effective learning advisors from Edinburgh, Dubai, and Malaysia for this particular session. So to start with, the workshop content, if you can see, talks about why do we use sources? Why should we quote, paraphrase, or summarize? And what's the difference in them anyway? Secondly, how do I quote, paraphrase, or summarize? And lastly, must I cite and reference during the examinations? Remember, it's a 24-hour examination. Yeah? So why use sources? So that's the first question that we need to answer. And I'd like to show you this particular slide. It says here that academic work is actually built on existing knowledge. So that means these are the articles and journals that we obtain from our databases. And usually in a 24-hour exam, it will be an essay, or it could be a certain kind of report. And these are normally based on findings and conclusions that you read about in your books, in journal articles, or in other sources. But what do you do then? So you need to incorporate what you have read in your own work, okay, by quoting, by paraphrasing, and some ideas and evidence from your reading, and then referencing the source. So basically, I would say that if you want to answer your 24-hour exam, what you need to do first is to think about it and say, okay, this I think are the pertinent answers to that particular question. Okay. Secondly, you then go look into articles, or you start reading during the 24 hours period and then prioritize them. And because you have all this, you have evidences, and these evidences can either be quoted, can either be paraphrased, and can either be summarized. And most importantly, and this is the one that I would like to stress to you, is that you need to put citations and then referencing. And you would go and ask, why do I have to do it? Well, very simply, when you have citations and referencing, you actually earn a bit more grade than what you are expected of. So lecturers are very impressed when you have referenced and cited them. So this is just one of the tips that I'm giving you today. Okay, next slide. So always remember that the ideas and the evidences that you obtain, and you might quote them, should never replace your own analysis from the readings that you have. Rather, when you look at all these quotations, your summary, and your paraphrasing, they should first support, the argument, or maybe counter the argument or contrast the argument, or you could compare and contrast ideas, methodology, interpretations. The other one, which is actually very high in the Bloom's taxonomy, is that be able to evaluate. Fourth would be to test your conclusions or apply the methods, and maybe justify why the question or problem you want to work on is very valid. And maybe for this particular 24-hour exam, this might not hold through, but I'd say it anyway. Develop better methodologies. But this one is basically one of those that you will need to do when you are doing your final year project. Moving on. So as you can see, I've asked this particular question: quote, paraphrase, or summarize? Do I even understand them? Yeah, so I'm going to give you a brief background on that one. First, what is a quote? Quote is actually exact words, and we use quotations in order for us to define concepts, provide evidence, or analyze a language. In the work that I do, it is basically more on defining concepts that I use the quotations. And you also have to learn when it is important to use the exact words. Maybe you don't really need to put all of the exact words. So that's one of the ways I will show you later on how to do that. Third would be when an idea is presented succinctly and is relevant to your argument. So presented succinctly would be presented in a very short but focused manner. Okay, let's look at this text. Yeah, I'll give you a few seconds to read that. I will actually read it for you so that you'll have time to also read it by yourself. So the original text here says quotations should be relevant to your arguments and used judiciously in your text. Excessive use of quotations can disrupt the flow of your writing and prevent you from demonstrating your understanding and analysis of the sources that you have read. Your tutor will prefer to read your own interpretation of the evidence. Yeah, just one comment in this one. I sort of had this. This is grammatically wrong. So the correct word is actually this one, judiciously. Yeah? Okay, going back. So how do I do that then? So note that here in red, you can see that it will become like this. Quote, Peer and Shields 2016. So you notice that it's 2016. Note that quotations should be used judiciously. Should. So you might ask, what is judiciously? Oh, the word is so long. It means that you should use your quotations very wisely. So this is a very apt kind of slide. Moving on. How do you paraphrase? Paraphrase is one of those skills that is really so difficult to do. So I'll read to you what it means. It says here that paraphrasing is actually expressing borrowed ideas or information in your own words. Well, that's fantastic. So let's go to very, very focused kind. Paraphrase it when you want to simplify the original article. And this is actually appropriate for your own purpose. So you don't know probably that it may not be appropriate. So you have to look into that. Your own explanation might be needed to be added in this particular argument, or original ideas need to be reorganized to fit with your text. And your emphasis is different to that of the original text. So this is the one that I'm a bit concerned about. Yeah. So there are certain articles that may be different in terms of their viewpoint. Yeah. And you want to use that particular article. So how do you do that? So one of the ways you can do that is to paraphrase it. So this is a very, very important skill. And I cannot help but think that if I was younger, like you are now, I would have really wanted to be able to learn the skill of paraphrasing. So moving on, we have an example. So this is the same example as we did in the quotation. Yeah. So I'm not going to read it to you, but I'm going to read to you how the paraphrasing should go about. So it would read like this. Peers and Shields 2016 state that in terms of both style and argumentation, it is preferable to present your own analysis using only a few direct quotations. So well and good if you can see the paraphrasing actually agrees with the original text here. Yeah. So what then is a summary? Summary is extracting relevant ideas from longer text. So for example, you have a book and probably you don't want to write everything that is in the book. Then it becomes a book then. So what do you do? Maybe you just need an overview of that particular book, or you want to mention an article as a whole, or maybe the readers are familiar with the original content and just need a little bit of refresher of that particular book. Or maybe you need to have a significant simplification, and then you need to summarize it. And lastly would be the original includes information that is not relevant to your argument, but you still need to summarize them. So summary is very important. So here is an example, and it is still the same original text, and you can see that the summary would look like this. Pierce and Shields suggest that analysis should be prioritized when referring to sources. So let me just look at this one. So I had this particular question when I was looking at these lines, and I thought to myself, well, what then is the difference between paraphrasing and summarizing? So I'm going to show you what is the difference. It's here. When you paraphrase, you actually own that particular article and your explanation is there. Yeah, it still has the original idea of that author, but your own explanation has to be placed there. So I'd like to point that out to you by giving you this particular slide again. So now you know why. So we'll move on to how do you quote, how do you paraphrase, and how do you summarize. So how do you quote? To quote a source, it has to have these three things. The quoted text is surrounded by your quotation marks. The original author is correctly cited, and the text is identical to the original. Yeah. So you might ask, what if the text is so long? How am I going to write everything? So if I have maybe a 500-word essay, then half of the number, maybe 100 words of that would go to the quotation. So I'm going to answer that later on. So what is it all about? So it has to have a signal phrase. So it could be according to, okay, or it could also be included with a verb such as argue, claim, or explain. So let's see this one. Jones 2018 argues that public perception of the safety of autonomous vehicles is critical to the future of this technology. So if you ask me which one is better, I would look in terms of how strong the sentence is, and I would say that this second one would be better compared to this one. But that depends on how you will use it in your essay. Okay. So it should also be integrated into your own sentence, such as this one. Studies indicate that the potential to develop this technology is dependent on, quote, public perception of the safety of autonomous vehicles. Yeah, if you notice, it looks very different from the previous slide that we had a while back. So, as I've told you, what if you have a 500-word essay and you only need a little bit of the code? You can actually shorten the code, and you can see this one. This is how it can be done, ideally. So as Jones 2018 states, public perception ... is critical to the future of this technology. Then you have how many words only? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you have shortened it to 10 words as compared to you putting all the quotation, which might mean that you will have to write maybe 30 words or so. Moving on, how do you paraphrase? So paraphrasing, as I've seen it with some of the students who come to me, is that they actually take all the words together and then they go and look for the synonym. And I can tell you, it really sounds very funny. What you need to do is paraphrase ideas. Paraphrase ideas, not sentences. What do you need to do first? You need to read the text containing the ideas and make notes. Try to make and understand what is the point of view of that particular author. He could have 3 arguments or 5 arguments, and you want to put that together. So it says that if you find it hard to paraphrase an idea, it could be because you have actually not understood the idea at all. So what is very important is for you to read and read it again and try to capture what the author wants to say. So paraphrasing is a skill that is very important. You don't want to sound like a parrot quoting that particular author. It will cost you in terms of number of words. Paraphrasing is a skill that we need to learn, and I want to emphasize that. So going back to that one, paraphrasing is something wherein you need to understand what the idea is. Yeah, what does the person or what does the author want to say? Yeah, and you want to capture them in as short as possible. It's as short as possible, as little sentences as possible. So this is a practice for you. I will let you do that later on when I give you the slides. So moving to another topic, how do you summarize then? Yeah. As with paraphrasing, summarizing focuses on the idea, not the text. Your summary will depend on your purpose, but in general, you need to identify the thesis or the key concept or the main ideas of that particular work and the writer's point of view. You see here, stance means a point of view of the writer. Which aspect do you want to tie to your own argument? So it means that you don't necessarily have to agree with what the writer wants to say. You can agree half of it or fully. Secondly, use your notes to explain these ideas and the link to your arguments using your own words. If you notice, you have to also use your own words. So let's go to this one. So you have been able to understand how to quote, how to summarize, and how to paraphrase. And the most important part, the second most, I would say, would be how do you go and cite it? Yeah. You cannot just go and claim them as your own, because then it becomes plagiarism. So how do you do that then? When do you cite sources? When it's published or unpublished material, realize that when you're quoting, or when you're paraphrasing or summarizing, you are actually using another person's work, another person's idea, or another person's words. So it is but just that you should cite them. So it could be published or unpublished material. It could be printed online. It could be tables, graphs, diagrams, images, etc. Yeah. And here you can see that if you want to avoid plagiarism, there's actually a link here, and you can go here and look into how you can avoid plagiarism. So this is something that I was so interested about when I saw this particular slide. It says here, poor academic practice. Yeah. Remember that you use sources to build your own argument. That means you already have your own argument even before you start your assignment. Quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing should not replace your own analysis. So your own analysis is very much there. And excessive use can lead to poor academic practice. Okay, how does poor academic practice look like? It is fully referenced, but is heavily reliant on only 1 or 2 sources. So only 1 or 2 sources would be too, I would say, not showing all the perspective, all of the question, or all the things that you want to say in that particular question. So you need to have, I would suggest you need to read 5 sources for this one. And if you can go move into 10 sources, then it would be so much better. So other one is derivative, includes too many codes and not enough analysis. You know that you can have codes, yeah, but you can also shorten them. If you remember, we talked about how you can shorten the codes. The other one is inadequately paraphrased. It is too close to the original. And one of the ways that it happens is when you go and write the whole sentence or whole sentences of the idea of that author, and you just go and look for synonyms. So that's one of the things that wherein your essay actually looks very strange, and you think that it is interesting, but for the lecturer or the tutor that reading them would be seen as a poor academic practice for you. Okay, moving on to the 25th slide. How do you cite sources? So citation and referencing is actually one of the things that one of the workshops that the library has a webinar on. So I will only go and talk about it very, very shortly. So you need an in-text citation where you wrote your assignment and a full citation in the bibliography or reference list. And you might ask, Miss, do I really need to put a reference in my essay? Yes, of course. Why do I say that? Because you look very professional, and it might earn you 1 or 2 points if you have a reference list. Just remember that referencing, we are using our own Harvard referencing. So the way to cite a source depends on the citation style. As I've said, here in Heriot-Watt, we have our own Harvard citation style. And so you need to ask the library how that format looks like. If you don't have time to ask the library, you can write an email to me. I will tell you my contacts later on, and then I will give you that particular slide. I have that here with me. Okay, moving on. So information for citation. So this is just a review for you. So I'm just going to read it very fast. Of course, you need to have the author or the editor, the date of publication, the title, and the publication details. If you need more information about this, please go ask the library or you ask me for that particular set of slides. Okay. So let's clear this up. So in-text citations can either be information prominent. That means you really want to talk about the information. So it says here, early work on a bridge construction showed metal weldings was important. So Smith, 2007, is the writer or the author, but he is not as important compared to the information. What if the author is very prominent in his particular field, and you want to emphasize that this is what he is saying? So you can go and do an author prominent citation. So if you notice, it starts with, according to Smith, 2014, the interwar period was critical in the development of ... So you have to think, is it information prominent? Do you want to make sure that the information is very prominent in your essay? Or you want to make sure that the author is the one that you want to highlight? Yeah, so that I leave that up to you. So this is the second to the last slide. So you can use several citations to support your statement. So sometimes when you look at the articles, I'm really very enthused when I see articles that have so many references, so many citations. Like this one, this is like 1, 2, 3 citations. And you can have probably more. I've seen a sentence which has 10 citations. This is because they have certain ideas that actually fit together, and so you can cite them in one whole stretch. So it could be like this, for example. So they have they agree on this particular idea that online information seekers indicate as their priority the ability to access information in the quickest, easiest, and most convenient way. So Crespo, Wathan, Burkle, and Rice agreed on that particular idea. But here you can also look at another way of doing things. The criteria suggested for assessing guides include purpose and format. So Galvin 2005 thought that that is the criteria that is important. Consistency, scope, readability, usability, Dahl 2001, Kapun 1995, and Wales 2005 thought that is quite the criteria that we need to look into. And currency, especially in links to websites, is attributed to Wales again. You notice Wales here and Wales there. So you can actually do these two sets. But if you notice, it talks about criteria. So it has maybe, you know, criteria has a lot of sub criteria in it, so that is why you can do this particular thing as compared to this one when it's only one idea that you need to think about. Okay, so this is the last slide, and this is my contact. Yeah, so if you notice, I have an email here. Yeah, s.galimpin@hw.ac.uk. So you can actually ping me using MS Teams. That's one of the ways you can do that. Or you can WhatsApp me. So my number is here. It's 01126151742. So I'm going to make that bigger, and it's not bigger. Now this is bigger. So you can see that it's 01126151742. I'll be very happy to talk to you via WhatsApp if you want to. If you want to talk to me face to face, that's also fine. And you can also email me. And this particular email, if you go to MS Teams, this is the one that you can use in order to call me via MS Teams. So guys, I really want to say that you need to take care of your health with what is going on right now. But most importantly, you need to take care of your well-being. You need to be able to prioritize your work. So yesterday I was talking about attention management. And when you think about that, that is more important than time management. Yeah, attention management is critical now because we are moving into your final exams. I hope that you have that particular guide that has been sent to all of the students. If you don't have that guide on the 24-hour exams, it's available with me. You can write me an email. And with that, thank you very much. And I hope that I can make more videos. This is my second video, and I'm so enthusiastic about it because I know I can help you. Yeah. So let's just say I will meet you again, hopefully by this year. Yeah. Thank you very much and have a good time. Bye bye.